Hey love bugs, welcome back to another Tarot Lover Reviews. Today we are taking a look at the Tarot of Curious Creatures by Chris. If you have heard of this tarot deck or you haven't, hopefully this review and the flip through that comes afterwards helps you to decide on whether or not this tarot deck is right for you. Now, if you want to skip straight to the flip through, feel free to look down in my description. I break down all the suits into chapters to make it easier for you to locate exactly where in the flip through you would like to start. But right now we're going to talk about the packaging, we're going to talk about the guidebook, and we're going to talk about the cards. Cardstock, the size of the cards, the backing, the texture, naming convention, everything. So if you're interested in the details, stick around. Otherwise, feel free to head on over to the flip through. Now, let's talk about the guide, or not the guidebook. I was going to go straight to the guidebook. We're trying to jump ahead here. Let's talk about the packaging. So we saw the first part, the front part of the box. And here are the sides. Okay. Now, if you have any of Chris.'s other tarot decks, which is the Light Seers Tarot, or the, I believe it's just the Muse. I was thinking it was like the Mystical Muse or something like that, but it's the Muse Tarot. If you have those tarot decks, then I feel like the texture of the cards, the card stock, the size of the cards is pretty much going to be the same. So if you have any of those particular tarot decks, then you know exactly what to expect when you receive this one. So this is the backing of the box, and then the box opens like so, which is also how the other tarot decks open for hers as well. So this is the interior. Feel free to scan that QR code if you would like, but this is at the interior. I love when they take the time to decorate the interior of the box. Even though it's not something you always look at, it's a nice little surprise whenever you open the packaging. So that's the interior, and you can see here the box is thick. And you know, if you have seen any of my videos and the reviews that I've done, I always appreciate when the packaging is thick, because if you have your tarot deck in the box and it accidentally falls, say falls off the counter, falls off of a shelf, at least the box is going to take the brunt of the force to where the tarot deck itself is not damaged. Yes, you will have a damaged package, but at least the tarot deck is well protected. So I always appreciate and want to always make sure to mention the thickness of the packaging. So that is that, and I'll go ahead and put that right there so you guys can see it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the guidebook. So with Chris.'s guidebooks in her other tarot decks, they're pretty much the same as far as the size of the books, which is a really good size. It is a good thickness, and this is the back, and there they are. Okay. Now, as far as the information that you're going to get within this guidebook, what I do love, and I feel that I need to let you know about, I guess you can say, is the intro. The intro to this guidebook I absolutely love, because it's if you don't want to hear about this, feel free to fast forward, but they create this little game of finding like your significator card, the card that's going to represent you, the card that's going to let you know that this is important, this reading's important, or something's coming up. It is a way to get your attention that whatever reading that you're doing is going to pertain to you. Or you're going to be somehow involved, something along those lines. But I absolutely love the way that they have written this book. I just love it. It makes you excited. It makes you intrigued and interested and wanting to know what's going on, right? So with that being said, you also do, and I totally just lost the page here, you do get tarot spreads in this guidebook. I'm trying to see how many. So you have a couple right here. So that's 2. You have 2 more here, right here. That's 5. So 5 tarot spreads in this guidebook, and I absolutely love it. That is another thing that I'm always looking for within a guidebook, because then that lets me know that I can look to these to utilize my tarot deck. And on top of that, the spreads that are in here are themed after the tarot deck, which makes it even more personable, in my opinion. So I love the fact that there is more than one tarot spread in this guidebook. Now let's talk about the information that you receive with each of the cards, right? So this is kind of what it looks like. Okay, you don't receive a picture of each of the cards for each of the meanings, which is totally fine. You can always hold a card next to you as you're reading the interpretation. That's totally up to you. It's a plus when you do include the picture. Now, with each description for the cards, you have a heads and tails interpretation. So heads is the upright interpretation and the tails is the reversed interpretation of that card. And then you get a bit more description. So you get a paragraph for the upright, a paragraph for the reversal, and then the way that the next paragraph or so, I love the way that they wrote it out. Everything about this deck is intriguing. It's interesting. It's relatable. And it's almost as if this tarot deck is talking to you, which, I mean, that's kind of what tarot decks do, right? They talk to you. They tell you the things. But this tarot deck kind of makes it feel like it is an actual being, you know, a character, whichever one you end up deciding on choosing, right? So I like that. I like being able to kind of put those two together and relate those and be able to do a reading that is on a whole different level than what I'm used to doing. So yeah, that is pretty much the guidebook. The major arcana and the minor arcana are basically set up the same way when it comes to the information they provide. Some guidebooks don't necessarily do that. Some guidebooks will provide more information on the major arcana than they do the minor arcana. But with this particular guidebook, you get the same thing for both. So that's kind of nice. You're not getting too much information or bonus. I mean, it's always good to have bonus information, but I like consistency, right? So that is the guidebook. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the cards. Now, as I get into this particular piece of the review, I always like to stop and say that when I am going through the cards and talking about the things, I always reference or compare it to the Rider-Waite-Smith. The reason why I compare to the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot is because a lot of the guidebooks out there that you can purchase separately is based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith. So the imagery is based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith. The naming convention is pretty much based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith. So if you purchase a deck like this and it doesn't follow, I'm not saying that it's not, but it doesn't follow those particular guidebooks, you can't necessarily use that guidebook for that deck. Of course, you can refer back to the actual guidebook that comes with this tarot deck, but if you like utilizing other guidebooks like I do, because I love hearing everyone's interpretation of the tarot cards. I love gaining another perspective on the cards so that I can just add it to my little dictionary of meanings for each of these cards. So that is why I do what I do, because if you do utilize guidebooks or you use other tarot decks, you need to be aware of there's going to be tarot decks out there that don't follow what you might be used to, especially if you are starting off with the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. You may find it hard to move into a different tarot deck that doesn't use the same naming conventions or imagery. You may find it a little bit harder. Doesn't mean that you can't do it, because honey, if you want to do it, do it. Do not let me stop you from purchasing the tarot deck of your dreams. Just be aware it's going to require a little bit more work in getting used to the imagery, the naming convention, than what you're typically used to seeing. So, with that being said, let's talk about the cards. So first off, let's talk about the cardstock, the backing, and the texture of the cards. So this is the back of the card. And if you are familiar, I believe the Muse Tarot does this as well. I know for a fact, for sure, the Light Seers Tarot does this, where it has a diamond shape. The design in the middle and the red parts and even the purple parts are different on the Light Seers, but the diamond shape, this shape right here, is pretty much the same. That is what's on the Light Seers Tarot as well. So I love that there is a connection between all of them. You know, it's their tarot deck. I just love it. It's the little things, right? So as you can see also is the texture, or not so much the texture. The texture is the matte. Okay, so it is a matte texture. Okay, it is not glossy. So I like the cardstock that Chris-Anne uses. I absolutely love the cardstock. I love the texture. It's not sticky to where the cards stick together, and it's not too slippery to where I find the control on the cards are a little bit more difficult, right? So I like the texture of the cards. I love the cardstock. The cardstock is Goldilocks zone. Now, if you don't know what I mean by a Goldilocks zone, what I mean by that is when you shuffle, and utilizing the riffle shuffle as an example. If you split your deck in half and you go to bend it to shuffle it like this, right? The way or the tension that you receive when you are bending the cards like this, if you can't even do this, the cardstock is too thick, right? Makes it a little bit difficult for you to shuffle in that manner, right? If you have no problem, like you fully can bring it and bend it almost, a 90-degree angle, then the cardstock is on the thinner side because you're able to bend and flex the cards that much easier. But when you're able to do it right in the middle, the Goldilocks zone, where you're able to bend it but not too much, you still get some tension on it, that's what I consider the Goldilocks zone of cardstock. Just makes it easier. It's comfortable. You don't have to, push so hard to be able to shuffle in that manner. But again, you don't have to shuffle in that way, guys. You don't have to. You shuffle however way you feel comfortable in shuffling. Okay. If you want to do that over, I don't want to take the cards out of order, but if you do this, you can do that. You can do it that way. If you want to put it on a table and just swish it around, shuffle it that way. It's whatever way that works best for you, whatever you feel comfortable in doing. For me personally, I change the way that I shuffle based on the cardstock of that tarot deck that I want to use. So sometimes I will do that riffle shuffle. Sometimes I'll do that over under shuffle. Sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to split it, cut it in half, split it, cut it, and just do it that way. It's whatever I feel comfortable in doing with that particular tarot deck and that cardstock. Okay. Now let's talk about and I totally put my example card in, I put it away, so I apologize. but I am pretty sure I have this one that I know is a standard tarot card size. So if we use that as an example, here, let me put this in the front. It's maybe just a little bit bigger. You know what? Hold that thought. Let me go get the right card. Okay, guys, so we have our standard Rider-Waite-Smith tarot card, and then we have the Curious Creatures tarot card. Doing that side-by-side comparison, they are exactly the same in size. So that is always helpful to know, especially if you don't like the cards being larger than the standard tarot card size. So yeah, that is that. I think that was the only thing that I needed to show you guys other than that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the imagery and the naming convention for this tarot deck. Again, keeping in mind that we are basing it off of the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and naming convention. So let's start with the naming convention, and that is all the major arcana is basically the same. The minor arcana is basically the same as far as the suits and the court cards. And I am happy to say it is exactly the same. Nothing is different in here. The minor arcana are the same suits: Pentacles, Cups, Wands, and Swords. And then your court cards are the same as far as Page, Knight, Queen, and Kings. So that is always fantastic. Now let's talk about the imagery. So the imagery, of course, is going to be different from the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery because of the theme of this particular tarot deck, and that is Curious Creatures. So instead of your typical imagery that you would be used to, in that you are getting something completely different in regards to the characters that you see. But you still kind of get the gist of what that or who that character is. So for example, the Magician, right? We know that it's the Magician because of all the suits being in there and the infinity symbol. So you just have a polar bear in a white suit as the Magician. So that's like the difference there. Let me do a court card. Okay, so I find this interesting. You have the Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles has a pig, right? This deck, that's what I that's what I love about this tarot deck, is that when you think it's the thoughts that are invoked when you're looking at that particular animal in that particular setting, right? So with this Four of Pentacles, I automatically think of Charlotte's Web, right? And I think of the pig and how they are so, they cherish things. Like, they truly cherish it. They don't so much hoard it, which is what I typically refer to this card as, like saving up or hoarding, you know. Yeah, those are typically the two key words that I use majority of the time for this card. But the fact that the pig's there and the way that they're holding it, if it wasn't a pig, I wouldn't have thought of this. But that just makes me think of cherishing, you know, holding value to something to the effect of cherishing it. So it completely just broadens my understanding of that particular card without even reading the description in the guidebook. And I feel like if you read the description within the guidebook, it's gonna be even more, you know, more information than probably you would have expected for that particular card. So like, that is one example. There are a few other ones in here that I'm just like, dang, man. I love it. I did not think that I would be an animal type when it comes to tarot cards. I figured I would like to have human-esque characters in the tarot deck, and having animals instead would hinder me from really understanding the cards. But it adds another level. You know, you think about that animal and you think about their attributes as an animal, and you connect that with the card that it's representing, and it just adds so much more to the reading. I love it, and I didn't think I would love it, but I do. So if you're on the fence on purchasing a tarot deck that has animals on it, it's just not your thing, your vibe, take a look at the flip through and see for yourself. If it doesn't cause you to think outside of what you are used to with a tarot deck, then it's understandable. But that is just what this tarot deck brings to the table, right? When you're looking at it. So yeah, but other than that, you don't get the exact positioning of the characters in the iconic Rider-Waite-Smith positioning, but the elements within the cards, the characters' positioning, it helps you to know exactly what that card is trying to convey, right? So yeah, other than that, I like the font. Sometimes it is hard to see the name of the card. Like if we bring that magician back up, the name, the words, the magician disappear at the top of the card. So, I mean, it just all depends. But for the most part, the font does stand out enough to where you can see it. There's just going to be a couple of them where it's like, what is that card? But at the same time, you know what that card is. So yeah, other than that, I recommend this tarot deck. It was and did take me a long time to actually purchase this deck. I was on the fence about it because of it being an animal style type of tarot deck, but I'm glad I purchased it. So hopefully this video has helped you in some way. If it has, leave a like and take a look at my channel. See if there are any other tarot decks that you might be interested in. I know I'm going to slowly get into oracle decks as well, because I have a lot of oracle decks I feel like should be reviewed as well. Everybody is always looking for an oracle deck, and I have some good ones. So I think I may be leaning towards that as well in the future. But yeah, take a look, see if you see anything. Take a look at the video. If you don't find a tarot deck that you're interested in seeing a review on, leave a comment below. Let me know what tarot deck you're interested in seeing, and I'll take a look if I don't already have it. If I don't, I'll see whether or not I want to purchase it. All of these tarot decks that I'm reviewing, I use them. I want to continue to use them. So I don't necessarily want to purchase a tarot deck that I'm not going to necessarily use. But at the same time, I do have tarot decks that I love, but I just don't use as much. I'll use them once in a great while, but there's always that one. So it's not like it's not going to happen. So anyways, let me know. Without further ado, here is the flip through. Enjoy, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.